Hello everyone, welcome to our video Ruby on Rails and Postgres on Azure end-to-end tutorial. So we will have a complete tutorial about installation, configuration, development and deployment of Ruby on Rails and Postgres application on Azure App Services. So first, we will see an overview about the demo workflow. This will give a graphical representation about the demo steps and workflow, which will help you to abstract all the demo steps so you can have a big idea and connect all the workflow together. And then after that, we will go for the demo. But first, let me give you a quick introduction about myself. My name is Mohammed Radwan. I'm a developer technologies MVP and principal DevOps consultant. I have been doing software development for more than 15 years now, worked on several projects for different enterprise customers across different regions and countries. I heavily participated in the community, developed several frameworks, presented many sessions, holding various certificates for Azure and DevOps. I started back in 2002 as a classic ASP developer, relocated multiple times in multiple countries, worked with several technologies and for different roles and positions. And for the last 8 years, I moved to consultancy-based role where I focused more on helping different companies, some of them from the Fortune 500, to improve their software development and delivery using DevOps and automation. I have developed and authored several frameworks, command line tools, and guides. You can find them on GitHub and Azure DevOps Marketplace. I like to share my experience. This is why I have a YouTube channel and blog where they have hundreds of videos and posts that share different topics from my real experience. I have presented many sessions in several user group conferences, events, and customer site as well in different countries. So I got the chance and the opportunity to work in different culture, project size, and company size as well, which helped me to have different experience. Here are some links for my activities. So the first step in the demo to create the first resource group. So resource group is a logical container that holds different Azure resources. And then the first resource I will create is a Windows virtual machine. This virtual machine I will use to remote desktop to that machine, and I will use it to record all the steps of the demo. Then the second virtual machine I will create is a Linux machine, Ubuntu. Then I will install Git on the Windows virtual machine so I can connect remotely to the Linux machine using an SSH. And of course, port 22 must be open on the Linux machine so I can connect with the SSH. Then after that, once I connect to the Linux machine, I will install all the prerequisites. The first is the Postgres database, and Postgres database is an open source database which is robust, high performance. This is why it's a very candidate for robust applications. Then I will install Ruby on Rails runtime and SDK, which require to develop and run the application on the Linux machine. After that, I will add a remote repo from GitHub and get a sample application from the GitHub, which is a to-do list, and then get this application on my local machine. Start installing some package management for Ruby on Rails and restoring all the packages and bundler for Ruby on Rails, and then run the application locally on the Ubuntu machine, and then accessing that from the Windows browser machine. Then after that, I will create the second resource group, which will hold the rest of the resources for this demo. The first is I will create a Postgres database on Azure. Then I will configure the Azure firewall for the Postgres database. I usually configure that using the start IP and the end IP. And if I configure that with all of them 0, it means that allow other Azure resources to connect to the Postgres database. Of course, if I want to configure with a machine that outside Azure, I just need to specify the actual IP of that machine in the firewall rule. Then once I configure that, I can communicate from the Linux machine to the Postgres on Azure. And then once I did that, I will create the database on the Postgres on Azure. Then I will create a deployment user, which is a username and password that I will use them to push my application to the cloud later. Then I will create an Azure Service Plan. Think of Azure Service Plan is just an infrastructure for the web app on the cloud. And then I will create the web app based on the created Azure Service Plan. Then setting some configuration for the app settings, which is required for the Ruby on Rails production environment and the connection string. And then push my application from the Linux local machine to the cloud on the app service. Once I did that, this will restore all the packages, installing the bundle and all of that, and then I can access my application from the cloud. Once I have that, I will develop a new feature in the application and then start to test that locally on the Linux machine and then push that back to the cloud so I can see the new modification from the cloud. Once I complete that, I will start to streaming the diagnostics log from the app service. Once this completed, and then clean all the resources by deleting the resource group, by deleting the second resource group, and then deleting the first resource group. So let's see the demo. So first, I will navigate to the resource groups and create a new resource group, the first resource group. Let's name the resource group RG demo RUD1, and then I will use the UK South. Create. Then refresh. Then we can see here our resource group. Let's access that. Then I will create the first virtual machine, which is Windows 10. I will select the first one and create this version 1909. Then here name the machine VM Win Demo RUD1 and the same location UK South. I prefer with the fast RAM, which is 16. And then here I will put the username mrud1. Here just to put a strong password. You can watch this video for more information about Docker containerization and where and how Docker can fit with DevOps and CI/CD pipelines. And here I will allow the RDB port to open, then create. So let's get back to the resource group. And then I will create the second virtual machine, which is Ubuntu, using the same name convention, VM Linux demo RUD1. This is the two virtual machine for the demo. The same location. I prefer fast RAM machine. I will use a password for the SSH. And then here put the password, the strong password. And confirm the password. And here I will leave port 22 opened and create the virtual machine. Let's navigate back to the resource group again. Give some times and then refresh. I can see the two virtual machine created. Then I will navigate the Windows virtual machine. Let's close all the notification. And then click connect to download the RDB file or the remote desktop protocol file and connect to the virtual machine. Because this is a local machine, it's not connected to any Active Directory. Then putting dot and my name and the password. Then connect to the machine. Take the default settings, that's fine. The first step is to install Chrome, my favorite browser. Just download and I don't want to participate. Then run. Just move this. Now Chrome installed. Let's search for Git for Windows. Navigate first to Git and then download the 64-bit. Once I download it, I will install Git. Just more info and run anyway, so I can trust. Just default installation. This will install the Git for Windows, so I can remotely connect to the Linux machine using Git bash. So now it's installed. So let's now bin that to the taskbar, Git bash. Then I will run the Git bash and change the font so it can be more clear. I will make it 12. Adjust the window. Now it's fine. And then let's navigate to the Linux machine and get copy of the IP, the public IP. And then using the SSH to connect to that machine. So here I should type yes. Then here I type the password. Now I am connecting. And if I click Git version, this is on the remote machine. So Git installed on the Linux machine. So let's clear the screen. And then the first step is to install the update of the package management of the Linux. The apt Git is the package management for Linux, and the best practices is to first update the package management, which update all the URL for the resources for the package management, so I can install all the required application or packages on the machine. Of course, if I didn't update the package management resource, in many cases, this will cause a problem while I'm installing any software on the machine. So let's update that. Now I can install a local Postgres on the Linux machine. And this again, it is required to update the package management before installing any software on the machine. So this will acquire the Postgres database and install it on this machine. Just speeding up all of that. So this is not the actual time, of course. So now Postgres database is installed. Then I will connect to the local Postgres database by running psql. Now we can see Postgres, and which means that this is connected. And if there is any error for the connection, this will display an error while I'm trying to connect. Let's quiet by type /q to quiet the Postgres. Then I will create a Postgres user that I will use to create the database. So this will create the Postgres user, and then I will grant permission for that user to be able to create database. To do that, first I need to connect to the Postgres database by running Postgres psql. Now I am on the Postgres database, and then I will grant the permission for the created user. So as we can see, alter user Emerald1 created DB. This is the role. So alter role, as we can see. Now I will quiet the Postgres. Then I will install the Ruby on Rails runtime. Confirm. So this will install Ruby on Rails. Now it is installed. Then I will get from the GitHub the sample application, which is a to-do list. Let's see that application. This is a source. Let me show you the screen of the application. As we can see, it's very simple application, to-do list. First, let's see what is the directory in the current directory by using ls list. So as we can see, we don't have any directory. Then I will clone this GitHub sample application. So this will clone that locally. So let's list again. So as we can see now, we have a directory in our current location, which is Ruby on Rails tasks. So let's navigate to that directory. And then here I will list. So this is the current directories inside the repo, the local repo. I will need to install all the package management for this application. And before installing that, I need to install the package management for Ruby on Rails, which is the bundler. So here I will install the Ruby bundler, the package management for Ruby. Now I confirm. Then I will update the bundler. This will update the bundler. Now it's updated. And then I will install some libraries for the Ruby on Rails. Confirm that. And then I will install another library, database with Ruby on Rails. Confirm. Another library. Now I am ready to run the bundle which restore all the package for the current Ruby on Rails application. So this will restore all the bundle. Let's see, restoring here. As we can see, this is all the third-party packages with this application. Now it's restored. Now let's navigate to see to the database folder and to the migrate folder. And as we can see here, this is the file for the created task database, which is define the schema of the Postgres database. Now we will run the Rails migration to create the table that the application needs by using rack db create. This will create the table and then list here so we can see this is the same schema, and then run the migrate. So now the database is created. Let's get out cd space 2 dot, then clear the screen. Now let's run the Ruby on Rails application on the local machine. So we will run that by using Rails server. So now the application running on the local machine using port 3000. But port 3000 is not open on the Linux machine. So I need to open that port first. So I will navigate to the Linux machine and add a port rule. Here is 3000. And I will put the priority 100, so to be on the top, just name the port. Then click add. Now it's added. And then I need to restart the virtual machine. So I will click restart just to give some time. Let's navigate to the Windows machine. As we can see, it disconnected. Just I need to reconnect again using SSH and IP. It seems the machine is not up yet. Now it's asked for the password. Now I am connected. Let's clean the screen. So now I'm running the app server on the local machine. So now it's on the port 3000. So let's copy the public IP of the machine and open the browser. Just put the IP with 3000 port to navigate to the application on the local Linux machine. So now we can see the application. Let's adjust that so we can see the streaming of the application. Now I can click create new to create new tasks. Let's say task 1. I can navigate to the list. I can edit, create another task. Task 2, back. Task 3, back. I can also delete. So now let's navigate to the Cloud Shell so I can create the second resource group. Just to give some time to load the Cloud Shell. And here let's navigate to the resource groups. Now the Cloud Shell ready. Let's clear the screen. And then I will create here the second resource group, which will hold all the rest of the resources. Let's refresh here. Now we can see this is the second resource group. And then I will create the Postgres server on Azure. And as we can see here, I will have a username and I will have a password that I will use them to connect to the Postgres on Azure from the Linux machine later. So this will take some time. Just get back to the resource group now and refresh. Let's have a refresh on the browser. So we can see the Postgres on Azure created. Let's navigate that. So if I go for the connection security, we can see that the firewall rules is turned off for Azure resources. So I can of course turn it on from here, but I prefer the command because part of the command that I can do that as a part of the pipeline later. So it's very important to use the command. So I will here put the rule for creating the firewall rule. And as we can see, all the IPs is 0, which means that allow Azure resources. This will take some time. Now, if I navigate back to here and just refresh here, we can see that it turned it on now. Then I will come back here and type Control-C to exit from the Ruby on Rails, the web server. Then here, you can watch this video for more information about Kubernetes cluster, how to deploy Docker image to Azure Kubernetes service, and how to configure CI/CD pipelines for an end-to-end development and deployment scenario. Connect to the Postgres on Azure. As we can see, just PSQL, and here I will use the username and the server name. When it's prompted, I will type the password. So here, prompt me for the password. I enter the password, and now I'm connected to the Postgres on Azure from the Linux machine. So the first step is to create a sample database. This is just the sample database that I will use from the application Ruby on Rails to connect to that sample database. So now the database created, and then I will create the username with the password. Now, and then grant this user privilege to create. Now it's granted. Then let's exit the Postgres and then listing all directories in the current directory. Then I will navigate to the config so I can navigate to the database.yaml file, which has the connection string to the database. Database.yaml. And then I will just go down and delete this part. This is the old database, the local Postgres. And then just put this code, which will use the production environment variable, which has the name of the database. And then Control X to save. Let's double check that my changes are saved to this file. Yes, it's saved. Let's exit the file. Then I will start putting some environment variable, which will retrieved by the Ruby on Rails and which will be using the Postgres on Azure SQL Server. The first is the DB host using the name of the Postgres on Azure. The second is the name of the database. The third is the username, and the last one is the password. Now I will run the migrate Rails in the production. So this will migrate and create all the tables on the Postgres on Azure. And then pre-compile this required on the production. And then I will create the secret to manage the security. This will generate the secret. And then I will use this secret for setting the configuration. As we can see, this is the master key and putting the secret and also the secret key base. This is just an environment variable and using the same secret. So all of that is just setting some environment variables required by Ruby on Rails, and then I will use some of them in the connection string. This is to static files to true, so it can using the CSS and JavaScript file, and then running the app server. This will run Ruby on Rails on the local machine, web app on the local machine, but the database will be the production database on Azure Postgres. So this is the local machine. So if I refresh this, so this is still the local app server, the local web app server, but using the production or Postgres on Azure. This is why we don't have the data. So I can create new data. Now created 3 records. Now let's push my code to the cloud or the web app. So first I need to configure the global setting for Git because this machine is new, so I didn't configure that yet. Usually you do that one time. So I will configure the global user by put my name and also the username, so I can commit my code. Now I am ready to add any modification and then commit the modification. This of course for the database.yaml with the new connection string that will use the production Postgres on Azure. Then just here update database to use Azure. Now I commit that in the local repo. So then I will create here the deployment user with a username and password, which will be used to push my code to the app service. Then create Azure Service Plan, which is the infrastructure for the web app with the Linux container. Let's navigate to refresh here. We can see that the service plan created with the Linux container, and then creating the web app based on this service plan. And the runtime here, as we can see, it's Ruby 2.62 with Git deployment enabled, so I can push my code using Git if required. So this will create the web app with the Git URL as a remote repo. And here, this is the Git remote repo. And if I refresh here, we can see here, this is the web app. And if I navigate to the web app, we can see here, this is the Git remote URL. Let's close that. Now, if I navigate to the app settings for the web app, we can see that it's empty. So now I'm going to configure some environment variable, which required by Ruby on Rails environment. So as we can see here, I put the database name, the database username and password and all of that settings. This is the connection string. So if I get back here, let's refresh. We can see now I have all this configuration. This is the database. This is a host, the username, and all of this data. I also need to generate the secret. I will use it to set the keys in the app settings as well. So here, this is the keys that I will use using the generated secret. Let's navigate back to the app settings and refresh. Now we can see I have secrets here, the secret key base and the Rails master key. This is the keys created. Added this git remote. So now git push my code to the master, just to put the password for the deployment user. So this will deploy all my application to the cloud. You can watch this video for more information about Git with animation. You will see different animated commands like branch, merge, rebase, cherry pick, and many others. Restore all the packages, precompile. And now if I navigate here to the application and open the application, we can see that the application now is open from the web app on the Azure, on the cloud, and also the Postgres on Azure. So let's develop a new feature. So first, I will create a migration by adding a new column to the task table. The column is done, which is a Boolean type. Then I will just use the migrate to migrate that to the current database. Let's clear that. Then navigate to the controller. So I change the business logic. Here app, then cd controller, then list. So I have the task controller, nano, the editor. Then I here will add, because now the database has this column, which is the done. Then I will just add that to the controller here, and the parameter required, and then here just add done. Control X to exit, yes to save. Double check that my changes are saved. Yes, it's saved. Let's exit. Then let's go out and navigate to the views to change the view. Then first I will open the form of HTML, and here I will navigate to under the span description and add this line, which is for the done. Double check that my modifications are saved. Yes, it's saved. Then I will open this file and add the done. Double check for the show.html. Yes, it's saved. Then nano, the index. This is for the list. And just add here this part, which will display the done in the list. This is the home page. And also display the task done here. Save that. Double check that the changes has been saved. Yes, it seems saved. So exit, then run the server local, so I can double check on these changes before push them to the cloud. So if I click here, we can see that I have now the new feature which is done. So for example, if I edit, I can click now on the task, create done, then pack. Let's do for the second one, done, update, back to the list. So we can see that. So now let's Control C to exit, then clear. Now I migrate these to the Postgres on Azure. So this migration on the Postgres on Azure. And now push add any commit with all these changes, which is the new feature, commit a new feature. This commit to the local and then push all the changes to the local repo, which is the web app on Azure. Put the password for the deployment user. And this will push all the changes with the new feature to the web app on Azure. Now let's navigate to the application on Azure so we can see the changes. Just open here. Click on the URL. So now we can see that I have here the done feature added to the application on the cloud. I can create a new item. Now I will stream Diagnostics log. I can access the console logs generated from inside the container, but first I need to turn on container logging by using this command. Once I turn on the logging in the container, I can stream the logs by this command. So as we can see, this will stream the logs from the container. And this is the end. Then I will just need to clean the resources. First, Control C to exit the streaming, and then deleting the second resource group, which has the rest of the resources. This will ask for confirmation. Yes. Once I have that, I will delete the second resource group. So the first step in the demo to create the first resource group. So resource group is a logical container that hold different Azure resources. And then the first resource I will create is a Windows virtual machine. This virtual machine I will use to remote desktop to that machine, and I will use it to record all the steps of the demo. Then the second virtual machine I will create is a Linux machine, Ubuntu. Then I will install Git on the Windows virtual machine so I can connect remotely to the Linux machine using an SSH. And of course, port 22 must be open on the Linux machine so I can connect with the SSH. Then after that, once I connect to the Linux machine, I will install all the prerequisites. The first is the Postgres database, and Postgres database is an open source database which is robust, high performance. This is why it's a very candidate for robust applications. Then I will install Ruby on Rails runtime and SDK, which require to develop and run the application on the Linux machine. After that, I will add a remote repo from GitHub and get a sample application from the GitHub, which is a to-do list, and then get this application on my local machine. Start installing some package management for Ruby on Rails and restoring all the packages and bundler for Ruby on Rails, and then run the application locally on the Ubuntu machine, and then accessing that from the Windows browser machine. Then after that, I will create the second resource group, which will hold the rest of the resources for this demo. The first is I will create a Postgres database on Azure. Then I will configure the Azure firewall for the Postgres database. I usually configure that using the start IP and the end IP. And if I configure that with all of them 0, it means that allow other Azure resources to connect to the Postgres database. Of course, if I want to configure with a machine that outside Azure, I just need to specify the actual IP of that machine in the firewall rule. Then once I configure that, I can communicate from the Linux machine to the Postgres on Azure. And then once I did that, I will create the database on the Postgres on Azure. Then I will create a deployment user, which is a username and password that I will use them to push my application to the cloud later. Then I will create an Azure Service Plan. Think of Azure Service Plan is just an infrastructure for the web app on the cloud. And then I will create the web app based on the created Azure Service Plan. Then setting some configuration for the app settings, which is required for the Ruby on Rails production environment and the connection string. And then push my application from the Linux local machine to the cloud on the app service. Once I did that, this will restore all the packages, installing the bundle and all of that. And then I can access my application from the cloud. Once I have that, I will develop a new feature in the application and then start to test that locally on the Linux machine and then push that back to the cloud so I can see the new modification from the cloud. Once I complete that, I will start to streaming the diagnostics log from the app service. Once this completed, and then clean all the resources by deleting the resource group, by deleting the second resource group, and then deleting the first resource group. At the end, I would like to thank you for watching the video. Please, if you have any question or comment, don't hesitate to reach out. You can find more information on my blog, which will appear at the end of the video, along with some other related video. Thank you.